So many good choices. Which army do you pick? Wow! Welcome back to the Red Ones Go Fast. Old Big Mek here, and despite the fact that Orcs is my favorite, I have lots of armies, and I know how to pick an army that you are going to love forever. And that's what we're talking about in this video. So let's get into it! Alright, first of all, to my regular viewers, apologies for not having an upload the last couple of days, almost a week. Grandpa Nurgle keeps infiltrating my house. I'm starting to think that snotlings and nurglings are actually the same thing, because that seems to be the vector that, you know, the Nurgle plague keeps getting in here is through my snotlings. But yeah, better again. Back on the mend, ready to get back at this. And unfortunately, that means that because I was down for the count yet again, I wasn't able to do any like hobbying as far as building, painting, playing any games. However, what I did have was lots of time to sit and think in that brain-addled, you know, schmutz that is taking a bunch of cold medicine, right? It gave me an idea. And that idea was actually a simple question, but a very complicated answer. Which is, how do you pick an army that you're going to love throughout time, no matter what edition it is? And well, after lots and lots of thought, I have the answers. All right, as we get into this, although I am speaking specifically to Warhammer 40,000, which is, you know, kind of the main bent of this channel, this advice is probably still good for other Games Workshop army-based games, whether it's Age of Sigmar, Warhammer the Old World, the Horus Heresy / Warhammer 30k, and even like small-scale stuff like Adeptus Titanicus. It's not going to work as good for anything that is like single squad based, so like Kill Team and Warcry and Warhammer Underworlds. Those are kind of a different beast. What we're specifically talking about here are games that require an army. Like this one right here, which is one of my Imperial Guard armies. You see we've got a couple of troop squads and a couple of characters and a command squad and some more characters and a vehicle and some more squads, right? That is a proper army. And of course, this channel wouldn't be complete without showing off some orcs, and there is some of my orc army. These are the latest acquisitions, the Beast Snaga contingent to my army, which I absolutely adore with all of their bionics. And the reason why I was thinking about this is one of the most common questions I get are, what army should I play? And that answer is different for everybody. And that answer will even probably change throughout the lifetime of you being in this hobby if you are in it for years or even decades like old Big Mek here. And when it comes to picking an army for longevity, you really have to go beyond rules and what plays well in the moment. Because, well, nothing in either of these books is even remotely competitive if you can even play it at all anymore 2 decades later. And well, some people are going to complain about that, but to them I say, you know, this hobby is more than just playing the game, and nobody is forcing you to play 10th edition or even really the actual Warhammer 40k rules, right? We live in the year of our squigginess 2025, where there's things like one-page rules and now Trench Crusade and what is it, like Grimdark Future, and I don't know, there's a whole bunch of other things out there. Homebrew your own rules. Play 3rd edition, play 2nd edition. Who cares? Do what makes you happy. So once you divorce yourself from the rules and the meta chasing and all of that kind of thing, it comes down to the hobbying part of it. And again, that's the focus of this channel, is the hobbying part of it, right? We are here for building and painting and converting and kit bashing and enjoying the hobby aspect of it. And you know, at the end of the day, you might actually get to use your army on the board and have a great beer and pretzels game with your friends, which is kind of the whole point. All right, so let's set the stage. You have decided that you are going to play Warhammer 40k, or again, like I said in the beginning, any army building game where you need a whole army. You're standing there at the counter looking at all the amazing kits and going, how do I pick which one is going to do it for me? Now, most of these advice videos that you see say to start with this, which is the codex. This is the rule book for your army. I say don't do that at all. First of all, these things are an absolute disaster when it comes to value for money. They're extremely expensive. Everything in them is out of print as soon as they are printed because the points costs are all wonky and they keep screwing up the rules. And really, you're just buying it to get this code in the back to unlock it on the app so that you can play current rules. They're ridiculous. Get rid of them. Now, if you want to go buy yourself a classic codex and go from there, by all means, pick up a used codex. Don't pay more than like $5 or $10 for something unless you're finding like some collector's edition thing. But yeah, don't buy the current rules. I don't think that's a great way to start. Plus, it locks you into that whole rules mindset thing that is going to ensure that you're not going to love this army past the current edition. Now, step one is very, very simple. You want to go and look at all the models and look at the basic troop squads. And when I say basic, I mean the most basic of troop squads, not the kill teams, not the specialized squads, not the ones that, are like newer or like, trained for a specific, type of detachment or anything like that. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's okay. Ask somebody there, hey, I'm interested in starting an army. What are the very basic troop squads? Look at those. They're usually going to have 10 to 11 miniatures in them, and they are going to be kind of your basic thing. Like, for example, Space Marines here have Primaris Intercessors. You will see heavy intercessors and assault intercessors and all those kind of things. Don't pick up any of those. You want the basic ones first, no matter what the army is. Pick up a box of those. So if you're going to start Eldari or Space Elves, you're going to get yourself some Guardians. If you're going to do Orcs, I would actually get Orc Boys. I wouldn't get the Grots. That's the only one I had at the moment, but we'll get to that in a second. You want the most classic regular kit there is. And if you're unsure and nobody can answer for you, look through those rule books that you're not buying and see what the basic troop choice is. Nobody wants to see gray Space Marines. For example, in this Orc Codex that I told you to throw out and not buy, if you open it up and go to the actual army pages here on the inside, you're going to get to the battle line and you're going to see that there's boys, Beast Naga boys, and Gretchen. Those are your three basic troop choices. Obviously, you want to go for the first one, the most basic one, the regular boys. Now, there is a reason for this. You see, when you are going to collect an army, the most basic troop is the thing that you will build and paint the most of. Whether you think about it or not, it is going to happen. Every orc is basically a boy, okay? You take a boy and you give him a Burna and he's a Burna boy. You give him a Def Gun and he's a Luda boy. You give him a stick bomb or a rocket launcher and he is a tank buster. You make him a little bit bigger, he's a knob. You make him even bigger still, he's a war boss, all right? Are you starting to follow what I'm saying? This particular model and how you build it and how you paint it is going to translate to everything else in the army that is on foot. If you are painting Space Marines, your basic Space Marine Intercessor is going to be the same basic body shape and painting style that you're going to get for everything else. Yes, there are ones that get more flashy and have more stuff on them that you will have to paint, robes and swords and seals and whatnot, but the actual basic guy, the armor, the size, the way that you're going to paint it, is it going to be very clean? Are you painting lots of leathers or cloth or other type of textures? What kind of skin are you dealing with? And is there a lot of it or not very much of it? Those are all questions that can be answered easily and cheaply with your basic troops. See, these kits tend to be some of the cheapest kits in the entire ranges, and because they are your basic troop and they are pretty much required to play the game, you know that you're going to use them in the army. In fact, most armies will want multiples of these. If you are playing Imperial Guard, for example, like I showed you my army, you're going to have multiples, 2, 4, 6, maybe even 12 different basic troop squads to fill out your army. So why not start there and make sure that you actually like it? And see, I've learned this through actual experience. For example, there are a number of armies that I have built and started that I didn't start with the basic troops. And once I got there, I really started hating the army because I had to build and paint so many of these guys that didn't really call to me. The main one that I own right now is actually my Imperial Guard. As much as I love the vehicles, and I do truly love building and converting and painting the vehicles, I hate the infantry. These are the older Acadians. That is what most of my army is. And I just really, really, really dislike them. I dislike building them. I dislike painting them. I dislike the way they look on the tabletop. And so I have spent literally years floundering around in different areas trying to make an Imperial Guard army that I actually like. And that's far from the only example. I've actually built and painted 3 different Tau armies at this point in time because I love the robots, right? I love the battle suits. Give me all of the mech suits all day long. But up until really kind of this last edition, you couldn't really play a game and expect it to go well without having a bunch of your regular Tau foot troops. And I just really don't like those kits. I don't like that they have bare hoof feet that you have to paint when you've got all this armor that's on them. I don't like the way that they assemble and just kind of how small and fiddly they are, and the way that the cloth interacts with the armor and stuff. It's just not my thing. I love the way they look. I love the lore. I love all the robots. But when it comes down to brass tacks, if I'm going to build an army, I don't want to paint 20, 30, 40 of these guys in order to have a viable army. And again, it's not just your basic troops, right? All of your ethereals, all of your characters that aren't in battle suits, all of your kill teams, all of those kinds of things are that same basic setup and that same basic problem with the building and the painting. So if you decide you're going to start something and you go through an entire box of the basic guys, when you get to the end, you're going to either think to yourself, wow, I really enjoyed that. These guys are really, really cool. I'd like to do another. Or you're going to be, you know, that was a slog. I didn't really enjoy it. I'm not sure that this is the one for me, even if I like the way they look or their lore or whatever. If you're not enjoying the hobbying experience, that is right there the time to let go. And believe me, it's pretty darn easy to get rid of a squad of 10 basic troops. So, you know, it's one of those things where you're not going to feel so bad like throwing away all of your hard work making that squad. You can even keep it if you want, throw one squad on the shelf, but that is where you make the choice on whether you continue forward or not. Okay, now you have gone to the store, you've looked at all the cool models, you've gone, wow, these ones are the ones that are calling to me, you've bought in that basic squad, you've built it, you've painted it, and you're still going, I think these are the ones for me. What do I get next? Well, the next answer is a simple character. Now, when I say character, I don't mean special character. I don't mean named character. I don't mean ginormous set. You're not going to go from a Primaris Intercessor squad to painting Rabute Gilliman. Don't do that. It's a bad idea. Don't do any named character. Don't do any special edition. If it says commemorative on it, if it's expensive, if it's a named guy, you don't want it. Go look at the basic boxes and find yourself a regular character. Like this guy. He's just a Big Mek, like me. Now, why is this important? Well, simple. You've built your regular guys, right? This is a Beast Boy, but you know, he's a basic trooper. This is a pain boss. He is a simple, non-named character in that same line. And you can see he's fairly similar, right? We've got exposed skin with muscles. We've got some sort of choppy, snappy claw thing, but we've got some more going on, right? He's got the little squig there on the back. He's got more of a backpack going on. So it's this with some more to paint that are detailed. Now, the reason why to do this is, one, it's a different painting and building experience. There's a big difference between painting 10 regular dudes and painting one guy with more detail. Second, because it is just one guy, even though it's more detailed and you're going to spend more time on him than one of your 10 dudes, you will get this character done faster than that squad overall. And that's going to start building momentum. So when you get your character done, now you've got a little leader for your squad, regardless of whether or not that works in the rules. Who cares? Again, we are not looking at the rules, but just setting up on your own little hobby bench, you've got a little squad, and now you've got a little guy to lead them, and it looks cool, right? If you step back from that and you're like, I like where this is going, then you know you're on the right track. If at this point it goes, you know, I'm still not kind of feeling this, get off the train. You've only done 2 squads, right? You've only done, 11, maybe 12 different guys. it's okay to step away at that point. But this gives you that other next step in that particular army on what that painting and modeling experience is going to be like. And again, this is army agnostic. This isn't just for orcs. Here's my regular Imperial Guardsman, and here is a basic Imperial Guardsman character, right? He's got a little bit fancier of a uniform on, but you can see we've got the same shoulder pads. We've got the same boots. We've got the same paint scheme. We've got a lot of the same styles of thing. But it is different enough, right? I've got to paint a cape. I've got to deal with some medals on his chest and a different hat and things like that. And that's going to give me an idea of whether or not I like this army and should keep going, or whether I should have called it. And remember, don't get bogged down in details. Don't care whether or not that character can actually lead that squad. At some point, you're going to get there when it comes to the rule stuff. Just do what looks cool. And again, don't do a named character or an expensive kit or a big kit, because they are quite different. This little pain boss, as much as he's different from a regular Beast Nagaboy, is a way different deal than doing Ghazghkull Thraka. You can see this model is absolutely ginormous compared to him, and is very, very different indeed. Save these kind of centerpiece models for later. All right, now we're on to step 3. You've done your basic troop squad, you've done a basic character. What is next? Go back into the store, look at the range that is that particular army that you're working on, and pick any unit that has between 3 and 5 guys. It doesn't matter if it's an elite unit or an HQ unit or anything like that. Don't get bogged down in it. Just pick something that looks really cool that you want to build and paint that is between 3 and 5 guys. It's generally going to end up being an elite unit or some form of HQ adjacent thing. For example, this Imperial Guard Command Squad. It's 5 guys. They're very similar to the basic guys. They're also kind of similar to the character. What you're doing is combining your first 2 steps. You're working more on basics of the army, but you're also getting more detail and something a little bit more and a little bit more like exciting, a little bit more different, and just throwing something else in your army that looks really cool. If you do this squad and you're still into it, more than likely you have found your army, because now when you set it up on your tabletop and you look at it, you've got a squad of basic troops, you've got a leader, and you've got some sort of an elite squad, and it's starting to look like something cool. All right, at this point, you're starting to pick up some momentum, right? You've got 3 units that are completed. You've got 3 different types of models going on, and you've probably made that decision on whether or not, hey, I really like this army, and I'm going to keep going for it. And, you know, I've given it the old college try. It's not for me. Cut your losses and go do something else. By then, you've got, you know, a pretty decent little force that you can sell on and probably recover most of your money. Now, if you have answered yes and you want to keep going, there is a formula to follow to keep doing this to ensure success. And that formula is really, really simple, honestly. It's following the first 3 steps, but kind of ratcheting it up every time. So you've done a basic troop squad, a basic character, and a basic 3 to 5 man elite squad, right? So now start back over at basic troop squad, but pick a different squad. For example, if you built a squad of orc boys to begin with, buy yourself some Gretchen or those Beast Snaga boys and give that a shot. If you were doing the Space Marines, right, and you did the regular intercessors, try the Assault Intercessors, try the Infernus Marines, try any of the other troop squads that are not the basic one that you started with. If you did Eldar and you did Guardians, now would be a great time to go get that first Aspect Warrior squad. The Dire Avengers, who have been traditionally a Eldar troop squad. So yeah, you're getting something that's going to be a little bit more than that first squad that you did, but is still a basic squad, is still going to be something that's like 10 models or so for most armies. If you did, you know, Hormagaunts for your Tyranid army, now you could do Termagants or Barbagants, right? If you've done regular Chaos Space Marines, maybe now's the time where you start looking at those other Chaos Gods and doing something a little different and doing like a squad of Khorne Berserkers or something like that. Now, I know that some of you that play the game and are really into rules and stuff are just absolutely screaming at me going, you can't even play that squad with that army or in this detachment. Who cares? We are getting beyond the additions, beyond the meta, beyond that kind of thing. This is an army that you are going to collect and own for life, right? That is the question we are answering. Not what the flavor of the week is, not what the flavor of this edition is, not yet another army that you are going to have collecting dust that eventually you'll sell off at a huge loss because you just don't care about it. This is getting into an army that you will love, no matter what happens with the rules, okay? So, again, we're repeating those first 3 steps. We've now done a second basic troop squad that is different than our first. Now it's time to do a second character that's different than our first. Now, this time you can go a little bigger and a little crazier. Again, I wouldn't do most named characters. There are some named characters that are kind of smaller kits or aren't really that big of a deal, and those would be okay. Really look at the box and use that as your decision guide. A good example of like a bigger character or more complicated character that's still not named would be like this Beast Boss. Again, this is for the Orcs. This is for the Beast Snagga contingent for Warhammer 40k. He's a lot bigger than the Pain Boss and the regular Beast Snagga boy. He's a lot more detailed. Note this one is a conversion, but it's very similar to the real one. But yeah, it's just another step up on that ladder. Just think of this as a spiral upward of being increasingly cooler and also increasingly more complicated to both build and paint. But it's going to give you another character and somebody a little bit bigger looking, which goes with the fact that your army is getting bigger looking at this point. Now, I did say that there are some named characters that are probably okay. This is a good example. This is Minka. This is a named character for the Imperial Guard. As you can see, she's literally a regular standard size Imperial Guardsman with kind of a different pose. If you do see a character like that where it might be named or a commemorative edition or something like that, and it's about the same price as the other ones you were looking at, if you think it's really cool and you want to build it, at this point, it's okay. Again, even if it doesn't work in the army, don't worry about that. What you're doing is building and painting something that looks cool on your tabletop that you will enjoy. So whether it's, a small named character or a little bit bigger regular character, that is that next step. Okay, so we've repeated step 1, but a little bit different by doing that other basic troop squad that's a little different, a little more. We've repeated step 2 by doing that second character that's a little bigger and a little more. Now we're going to repeat step 3 as a little bigger, a little more, right? Sort of. At this point, you have 5 squads on your tabletop. You've got 2 basic troop squads that are going to be somewhere around 10 men each. There's 20 guys right there. You're going to have 2 characters, and you're going to have that 3 to 5 man elite squad, right? So you're looking at about 30 guys on the tabletop for most armies and getting a pretty decent look at what an army looks like. While you could do another 3 to 5 man squad, at this point, I say it's time to do your first vehicle. Now, this is where I really had to think about it the most, because the player in me goes, now you should start paying attention to rules, and you should get a basic transport vehicle, and, if you're playing, Adeptus Sororitas, you need a Rhino. If you are doing, Imperial Guard, you need a Chimera. If you're doing Orcs, you need a truck. But I have found in my experience over the decades that the basic troop transport kit, more often than not, is one of the hardest kits to do. The Orc truck is famously like one of the most detailed and largest 40k kits. In fact, I did an entire video on that just last week. And yeah, that's a faff. If you are a brand new person to this hobby, doing that as your first vehicle is not going to be a good experience. Same with this Chimera, especially if you try to do it with all of the opening bits and moving bits and options, and that just, it gets to be a lot, and then you get into magnetizing and stuff. I wouldn't do any of that. Instead, I want you to look at the vehicles that are available for the army that you are looking at, that you've been working on building, and picking one that looks cool to you but isn't too big, complicated, or expensive. A great option for this for most armies are the Dreadnought or Dreadnought-sized kit. Most every army has a large walker, something like this that is, it's a Dreadnought class. That's what it is. This is a Dreadnought for the Space Marines. I'm not sure exactly what one it is. It doesn't matter. It's a big stompy robot, and big stompy robots are cool. And almost every army has big stompy robots. So again, don't pick the biggest one, don't pick the most expensive one. Kind of look at what's out there and go, you know, hey, this one looks pretty cool, it's a reasonable price, and go for that one. The cool thing is some of the armies, like this particular Space Marine one, this is like an easy build kit. This one you don't even need glue, I think, and there are certainly others for other armies. There are often ones that you'll see put into combo kits like the combat patrols or the battle forces during the holidays that aren't terribly, you know, complicated. Just get something that looks cool but isn't necessarily massive. It's going to give you something really cool to work on that's very, very different than the other 5 things you have so far. Now, not every army has vehicles and not every army has walkers or things like that. Tyranids, obviously, they're bugs. What you want to do is get yourself a big bug, something that is just a single model that is big and cool. Alternatively, if you're not quite thinking that vehicles are your thing or you're not quite ready for one yet, get yourself a large character model. This right here is the Beast Boss on Squigosaur for the orcs, and you can see he's pretty big. He's like the size of a vehicle. He's going to give you that kind of same hobbying experience as far as building and painting something that is a large centerpiece model that's different, but he's not necessarily a vehicle, right? You're working on skin and things like that, although, you know, he does have a mechanical leg on this particular one, but you know what I'm saying. And again, if your army doesn't have vehicles, if you're doing Tyranids or something like that, get yourself a single big beastie guy. It's going to give you that same effect. Now, I did say don't do the basic transports. If you want to do them, by all means, go for it. Just be forewarned, they are often quite fiddly and not really the best option. Again, I would just go for any smaller vehicle kit that looks cool to you. For example, the orcs have a whole bunch of buggies and stuff. This is the Death Killer War Trike. This guy is actually a character model. Who cares? You're not caring about that. What you're looking at is the model itself. This is a model that's a vehicle. It's reasonably priced, it's reasonably sized, and this kit is a newer kit. It actually goes together really well, and it's fun to build and paint. Now you've got 6 full units in front of you, right? You've got these 2 squads of troops, you've got these 2 characters, you've got this elite squad, and you've got a vehicle. At this point, you have the trappings of an army. Just about every army at this point is going to be around, 500 to 1,000 points, depending on what the army is. And you should be able to at least play a pickup game with it or an intro game or something like that. And that's going to give you the feedback on what you should do next. And if there is really kind of anything you can do that would kind of help your army along, that also calls to you in the building, painting, and collecting sense. And again, if you're unsure of where to go from here, but you know that this is the army from you, just start the process over again. Squad, character, something special. And just keep repeating. You will find that you stay engaged with your hobby because everything that you are building and painting is different enough from the thing before to keep you interested. And also, as your army grows, it grows in different areas instead of all in one. One of the big mistakes I made was when I started this particular Imperial Guard army, even though I loved the vehicles, I knew that I needed a bunch of foot soldiers, and I bought a ton of them. And since I don't like painting them, they've literally spent years clogging up my painting desk. And to this day, I haven't really made it through them. And as you already saw, I only have 1 vehicle actually done. I did not follow my own advice on this, really because I hadn't quite come up with it yet, but I definitely did all the wrong things and have burned myself out on that hobby, or on that particular army. Whereas with my orc army, which is my main army and the one that I will, continue in perpetuity, I do something more like what I'm talking about. Those Beast Snaggers that I've been showing you, I did the squad of Beast Snagga boys, then I painted the Beast, or the Pain Boss, and then I did a vehicle. I did a great big giant vehicle, but again, at this point, I'm a couple dozen sets of steps into my army. I've done a bunch of vehicles, so doing a great big vehicle for my orcs was totally next in the cards. But again, the next army that I start, when I decide that I'm going to do the next thing, I'm going to follow this advice. So, for example, on my Imperial Guard, because I don't like the old Cadians or the new Cadians or any other options, I do like the Krieg. What I'm going to do is buy a basic squad of Krieg troops and build them and paint them. And if I like that, then I'm going to go buy the basic Krieg character, right? Not the Lord Marshal on the horse, the basic guy, right? Build and paint him. And if I like him, I'm going to go get the 3 to 5 squad, right? Probably do like the combat engineers. There's 5 guys in there. Build and paint them. If I still like where I'm going, I got to go back to those troop squads and do another troop squad and keep kind of going from there. Maybe do, you know, the horses, you know, the mounted guys for that special one the second time around, and start seeing how I like doing mounted stuff. Because while I've done a lot of squiggies, I haven't really painted a horse. So that could be interesting. But yeah, that is the combination that I'm going to do in order to make sure that I actually like this army and will keep continuing it. Alternatively, if I do build and paint that first squad and it's just as frustrating as the Cadians, I know that it's probably time to cut this army loose. As much as I love them and the lore and the pictures and all that stuff, if it's not an army that I am enjoying building and painting, it is not an army I'm going to enjoy in perpetuity. Think about this. If you get into an army right now because the rules are good, what happens the next edition when the rules aren't good? Because I guarantee you, every single army has done that. They have gone from the top to the bottom many, many, many times. So, like, if you already aren't in love with this army and then they become garbage to play, where is your incentive? Whereas, if you have an army that you love building and painting and the rules kind of collapse, it's not going to hurt as much because you still enjoy building and painting them. And maybe you take a step back from gaming with them or competitively gaming with them and work more on that hobby and on building that army up so that when the rules come back around, you've got that full swath to play with. But again, if you love building and painting them, who cares what the rules are? Because that's what the hobby is about, right? At the end of the day, this is a hobby about collecting, building, and painting little mini plastic guys to push around on the tabletop and have in your display case and enjoy owning. So that's what you should concentrate on. All right, that's going to do it for this video. I hope that that made sense to you. If you've got any more specific questions, let me know down in the comments below or hit up our Discord. There is always a link in the description. It is completely free. It is not landlocked behind anything. Although if you do want to support Old Big Mek, I do have a Patreon or YouTube memberships, which right now, if you're watching this when this video is new in February of 2025, every month of doing some sort of monetary support gets you an entry into winning my orc army. Not the painted orc army, but yeah, I have way too many orcs. So I am putting together an absolutely massive prize package. It's going to be won by somebody, plus of other extra prizes that are going with it. In fact, small update on that. You guys will notice a lot of the videos lately, I have not been wearing my own merch. I've been wearing random stuff, and that's because I had been using Teespring to make my Red Squig and the Red Ones Go Faster shirts, and well, their customer service over the holidays were absolute garbage. I had a number of complaints from multiple people, and I have completely cut them out, cut them off, and we are going with a local person to actually print them right here where I live, and then Old Big Mek himself will ship you the shirts. So merchandise stuff coming soon, and probably some cool new things that we'll have the local merch guys do as giveaways for that giveaway that I was talking about to win my army, because it should be more than one winner, so we'll have some cool stuff to give away to other people as well. All right, I think I hear a nurgling trying to break in, so I gotta go handle that. Until next time, Wagon!